Steve Harvey never owned a single toy as a child. Now he sends thousands of toys to orphanages every year, ensuring no child feels the emptiness he once felt, and proving that sometimes healing our own childhood wounds means healing the same wounds in others. It was Christmas morning 1965, and 8-year-old Steve Harvey sat on the edge of his bed in the small Cleveland apartment he shared with his parents and siblings, watching his brothers and sisters play with the few modest gifts they had received. There were hand-me-down clothes, practical items like socks and notebooks, and one small orange that had been placed in each child's stocking. But there were no toys, not a single toy in the entire Harvey household. I remember looking around that Christmas morning and realizing that while other kids my age were playing with new trucks, dolls, or games, I had never owned a real toy in my entire life. Steve would later reflect, not a toy car, not a ball, not even a simple stuffed animal. My childhood was completely devoid of the things that most people associate with being a kid. The Harvey family's poverty was so severe that toys were an unthinkable luxury. Steve's father, Jesse Harvey, worked at a coal company for minimal wages, while his mother, Eloise, cleaned houses and took in laundry to help make ends meet. Every dollar the family earned went toward basic survival needs: rent, food, and clothing. There was simply no money left over for anything that could be considered non-essential. My parents weren't neglectful or uncaring, Steve would explain years later. They were doing everything they could just to keep us fed and housed. Toys weren't even on their radar, because they were focused on keeping us alive. But the absence of toys in Steve's childhood created a void that went deeper than simple material want. Toys represent more than entertainment for children. They provide comfort, imagination, creativity, and the sense of ownership and pride that comes from having something that belongs specifically to you. When you don't have toys as a kid, you miss out on more than just play, Steve observed. You miss out on the feeling of having something that's yours, something that makes you happy when you look at it, something that sparks your imagination and helps you dream about possibilities. Steve's toyless childhood was made more painful by the constant reminder of what other children had. At school, kids would talk about their new toys, bring small items to show friends, or play games that required toys Steve didn't possess. I became really good at pretending, Steve remembered. When kids talked about their toys, I would nod and smile like I knew what they were talking about. I didn't want anyone to know that I had never owned anything like what they were describing. Steve learned to create his own entertainment using his imagination and whatever free materials he could find. He would make pretend cars out of cardboard boxes, create action figures from sticks and leaves, and invent elaborate games that required nothing but his mind and creativity. I had to become very creative because I didn't have store-bought entertainment, Steve said. In some ways that probably helped develop my imagination and creativity, which served me well later in comedy. But at the time, it just felt like I was missing out on a fundamental part of childhood. The pain of not having toys was most acute during Christmas and birthday celebrations. While other children received gifts that brought them joy and excitement, Steve received practical items or nothing at all. Christmas was the hardest time because it highlighted everything we didn't have. Steve recalled, I would see other kids with their new toys, and I would feel this deep emptiness, this sense that I was somehow less than them because I didn't have what they had. As Steve grew older and eventually achieved success in entertainment, he thought that his childhood experiences with poverty would fade into distant memory. He assumed that financial security and professional achievement would heal the emotional wounds left by growing up without basic childhood comforts. But Steve discovered that some childhood wounds run deeper than success can reach. Even when I became successful and could buy anything I wanted, I realized that there was still this hole inside me from never having experienced the simple joy of receiving a toy as a child, Steve admitted. Success hadn't healed that particular pain. The turning point came in 1999, when Steve was visiting a children's hospital in Los Angeles as part of a charity event. He was walking through the pediatric ward, meeting sick children, and trying to bring some laughter to their difficult circumstances, when he encountered something that stopped him in his tracks. In one room, he met 6-year-old Marcus, a little boy who was receiving treatment for leukemia and had been in the hospital for several months. When Steve asked Marcus what he missed most about being away from home, the child's answer struck Steve like a physical blow. "I miss my toys," Marcus said simply. "I had a toy truck and a stuffed bear, but they got left at home when the ambulance brought me here. I haven't played with anything in so long." Steve looked around Marcus's sterile hospital room and realized that this child, who was fighting for his life, had no toys to provide comfort, distraction, or simple pleasure during his treatment. "In that moment, I saw myself in that little boy," Steve said. "I saw a child who wanted toys but couldn't have them, just like I had been. But this time, I was in a position to do something about it." Steve immediately left the hospital and went to the nearest toy store, where he bought every toy that he thought Marcus might enjoy. When he returned to the hospital with bags full of trucks, games, stuffed animals, and puzzles, Marcus's reaction was everything Steve had hoped for and more. The look on that little boy's face when he saw all those toys was pure joy. Steve remembered. He couldn't believe they were all for him. He kept asking if he could really keep them, if they were really his, and in that moment, I understood what I had been missing my entire childhood. But Steve's revelation went deeper than just the joy of giving toys to one child. He realized that throughout the hospital, throughout children's homes and orphanages across the country, there were countless children who were experiencing the same toyless childhood he had endured. I started thinking about all the kids in foster care, in orphanages, in hospitals, in homeless shelters, kids who were going through childhood without toys, just like I did, Steve said. And I realized that I had the resources and the platform to make sure no child had to experience that emptiness. That realization led to the creation of Steve Harvey's annual toy drive, which began modestly in 2000 but has grown into one of the largest celebrity charitable efforts focused specifically on providing toys to children in need. Steve's toy drive operates year-round, but reaches its peak during the Christmas season, when the need for joy and comfort is most acute for children who are away from family or living in difficult circumstances. "We don't just collect toys randomly," Steve explained. "We partner with specific children's homes, orphanages, hospitals, and foster care agencies to identify exactly what children need and want. The program has specific criteria designed to reach the children who are most likely to go without toys." Steve's team focuses on children in institutional care, orphanages, group homes, and long-term foster placements who may not have individual adults advocating for their material needs. The program prioritizes children who are spending holidays away from family, ensuring that Christmas and birthdays don't pass unnoticed for kids who are already dealing with abandonment and displacement. Special attention is given to children in hospitals or medical facilities who are facing long-term treatment and need comfort items and entertainment during their recovery. The toy drive also serves children in homeless shelters and transitional housing, recognizing that families experiencing housing instability often can't provide non-essential items like toys. "Every child we help represents the childhood I never had," Steve said. "Every toy we give is the toy I never received. This isn't just charity for me. It's healing." Over the past 2 decades, Steve's toy mission has provided toys to over 100,000 children across the United States. The annual distribution involves dozens of volunteers, partnerships with major toy manufacturers, and coordination with hundreds of care facilities. But the impact goes beyond just the material gifts. Steve personally visits many of the facilities where toys are distributed, spending time with the children and understanding their stories. "When I hand a toy to a child who has never owned one before, I see myself at that age," Steve said. "I see the wonder, the excitement, the feeling of finally having something that belongs to you. And in healing their emptiness, I heal my own." The most powerful aspect of Steve's toy mission is how it has transformed his understanding of his own childhood experience. For years, I was angry about not having toys as a kid, Steve admitted. I felt sorry for myself, felt like I had been deprived of something important. But this mission taught me that my toyless childhood wasn't just about what I didn't have, it was preparation for helping other children who don't have what they need. Steve's toy drives have also inspired other celebrities and community leaders to create similar programs, multiplying the impact far beyond what Steve could achieve alone. The goal was never just to give away toys, Steve said. The goal was to remind people that children, especially children, who don't have families to advocate for them, deserve to experience joy, play, and the simple pleasure of owning something that makes them happy. One of the most meaningful developments in Steve's toy mission has been the involvement of children who previously received toys from the program. As some of his early recipients have grown into adults, many have returned to volunteer in toy drives, creating a cycle of giving that extends far beyond Steve's initial efforts. I've had young adults come back and tell me that the toy they received from our program was the first gift they ever remember getting, Steve said. Some of them are now volunteers helping us distribute toys to other children. That's when you know the impact is real and lasting. Steve keeps some of the letters and drawings that children have sent to thank him for the toys in his office. But his favorite item is a small toy truck that was given to him by a child named David, who wanted Steve to have a toy of his own after learning that Steve had never owned one as a child. That little truck sits on my desk every day, Steve said. It reminds me that healing isn't just about what we receive, it's about what we give. And sometimes, the greatest gift we can give is filling someone else's emptiness with the love we wish we had received ourselves. Today, Steve Harvey's toy mission has become a model for addressing childhood deprivation through targeted giving. The program has inspired research into the psychological importance of play and ownership for children in institutional care, and has influenced policy discussions about providing comfort items for children in foster care and medical facilities. That 8-year-old boy who sat on his bed Christmas morning with no toys grew up to become a man who ensures that other 8-year-old boys and girls have toys on Christmas morning. Steve often tells audiences, "My empty hands as a child became full hands as an adult, reaching out to fill the empty hands of other children." Steve's journey from toyless child to toy giver proves that our greatest wounds can become our greatest sources of healing for others, and that sometimes the best way to heal our own childhood is to give other children the childhood we wish we had experienced. If this incredible story of childhood healing and the power of giving moved you, please subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to be reminded that their childhood experiences, even the painful ones, can become sources of healing for others. Have you ever transformed your own childhood challenges into opportunities to help children facing similar struggles? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about turning personal pain into purpose and the beautiful ways we heal ourselves by healing others.